this Ramadan.
And at 4:30 p.m., Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. You are tuned into Salam Media. It is the weekend edition of the Iftar Drive. As you can see, the background slightly different this weekend as I am coming to you live from home. There's stuff going on at the studios this afternoon, which means, unfortunately, not able to do things as per usual this afternoon. But nonetheless, we must continue with the program. And joining me now is Dr. Jonathan Beloff, a research associate focusing on regional politics and security of the African Great Lakes. He is based at the King's College in London, but he is speaking to us this afternoon from Kigali in Rwanda. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so interesting times for Rwanda, and also, just if I may tie it up with the interview we had previously, which was the links. So in South Africa, we are now celebrating 30 years since the dawn of democracy, but there was also, at the time that we were transitioning, there was something happening in Rwanda, and of course, that was the deadly, the tragic Rwanda genocide. They also commemorating 30 years since that time. So I believe you are in Rwanda at the moment. Can you perhaps tell us about the atmosphere there as the country observes this milestone and the significance of this moment?
So 30 years ago, in a few hours, 30 years ago, the presidential plane of Habyarimana is shot down. Within 90 minutes, roadblocks begin and the genocide against Tutsis starts. Within 100 plus days, roughly 1 million Tutsis and non-extremist Hutus are killed, very much in the fashion of the Nazis' Einsatzgruppen, community-based and militia-based, that the concentration extermination camps were often schools, churches, public areas where local leaders would tell people you'll be safe here. And then once that building was full, then bring in the Interahamwe, translated as those who work together to come to kill people. And the genocidal massacres only ended when the Rwandan Patriotic Army, under the leadership of, at the time, General, now President Paul Kagame, liberated the country by pushing the genocide forces, by defeating, but pushing a lot of the forces out of the country into neighboring Zaire, or currently Democratic Republic of Congo. Every year, starting on April 7th, so tomorrow, the nation commemorates those who have died, the victims of the genocide, not just the ones who were killed, but the ones who were raped, the ones who experienced disfigurement, loss of limbs, etc., because of wounds that they suffered. And it will continue until July 4th, even though one can argue that the genocide continued still when the last major city was liberated, Gisenyi, I believe on July 18th. And when the French, who had set up a small military presence in late June, they would stay until August 20th, 21st. So the last genocidal massacres ended really then, when the current government took full control. And in Rwanda, this period is one of reflection, one of remembrance, and one of the future of coming together, specifically the ideology, the Nida Amaranda, I'm mispronouncing that, the I am Rwandan ideology, which tries to formulate a post-conflict, a post-genocide unified identity of Rwandan rather than Hutu, Tutsi, Twa. It was the Hutu genocidaires who tried to kill as many Tutsis as possible. So right now, the atmosphere, and especially because this is the 30th, so it's a big number, like in South Africa, the atmosphere here is anticipation, a little nervousness, because commemoration is a very emotional period, as well as kind of, joy isn't the right word, but a examination of how far the country has come in the promise of tomorrow.
I mean, we could talk about the distance that this country and this nation has traveled over the last 30 years in trying to reconstruct this nation. You have spent quite a bit of time in this part of the world. Are there any stories you might be able to share with us this afternoon, based on your interactions with these people? Of course, we're seeing extraordinary tales. We read about these where you have cases where people killed other people, and then you have forgiveness, remorse. You have all of those, and you see people now being expected to live side by side with the people who perpetrated the most unjust atrocities against themselves and their families. Any stories that might stick out for you?
Unfortunately, I have countless stories about this, and it's something that I at times mentally can't understand because you have being pushed by the Rwandan government, not as much now as in the past, this idea of we need unity, we need this cycle of violence to end. And unlike in the Holocaust, where a lot of Jews were able to then leave to the United States, Canada, to the United Kingdom, to eventually Israel, because they were not able to go back, the pogroms that happened in Poland right after the Holocaust. Um, Here, people had to come together, had to live together. And after, especially the first Congo War, you're having a lot of times perpetrators and survivors living together. I have stories of people working in the same field where, one, showed me an area where this is where that other neighbor threw his parents' body. It was a well at the time, and then just filled it up. And through Gachacha, the truth and reconciliation mechanism that was implemented here, a community-based court system, the person was able to find the remains of his parents and properly rebury them, even nearly 20 years afterwards. So throughout the country, especially in the village level, this country's largely subsistence agricultural workers, I think 80% or something. So there is the reality that, you have to engage, you have to live with these people, and we got to figure out a way forward, especially for the next generation and and especially their children. Rwanda, unlike many other countries, I feel, especially in the West, there isn't this idea of long-term future where the policies are driven towards long-term reconciliation that people won't know the difference between Hutu and Tutsi or Twa, that none of this will really matter because of this unified identity. So a lot of Rwandans I've talked to who at times, especially survivors who are not always at ease with, the person who tried to kill them living not too far away, but nevertheless trusting in the social contract being promoted by the current government of the cycle of violence needs to end and we got to move forward. And hopefully through Gachacha, through Terrero, the kind of civic education classes, you can be peaceful or be civil with your neighbor, even if they've committed genocide. This isn't always the case. There are survivors who still hold grudges, but they are accepting what the government wants. But yeah.
Mm. I mean, the 20th century really was a deadly year. It was an embarrassing year for us as humanity. When you look at Rwanda and their reconstruction, and you compare that to, you mentioned earlier on the Holocaust, and then of course there was apartheid just further down south in South Africa. How does that compare in terms of rebuilding and taking this nation forward?
It's always problematic when people try to compare pain, but the reconstruction can be looked at. On You had in post World War II Germany, the allies of the Soviet Union, United States, United Kingdom, France, really controlling Germany and really being heavily involved in not just the denazification, but the reconstruction of the state. You had a heavy international presence, which dictated so much of what Germany now is. With South Africa, you had a horrific apartheid system, which, while there was progress, there was still a lot of divisions and a lot of to go. But with Rwanda, it was very interesting that you had a victor of the Rwandan Patriotic Front, the political wing of the rebels, that while they won it all, they still try to implement previous peace agreements, which called for a multi-party democracy. But the problem is, a lot of these parties, that were not part of the extremist parties were decimated during the genocide. While Tutsis were from the start being targeted and killed in the first week, a lot of moderate Hutus and non-extremist Hutus and non-extremist parties were being targeted by not just the Interahamwe, the killers, but the Republican Guard and the former military here. So after the genocide, you had relatively a single political organization that's rebuilding the country from nothing. Unlike in Germany, which was hugely decimated as well, you had multiple parties engaging in there. South Africa wasn't starting necessarily, like the infrastructure in Rwanda was basically destroyed. The ministries were empty, the buildings were gone, the cars were taken out. Here they were starting from kind of ground zero and building a new state up. That's why many Rwandans comment that the country's independence wasn't really 1962 from Belgium, but what was 1994 because of just the sheer amount of reconstruction. And that has led to different abilities, and especially after President Kagame takes over the presidency in 2000, in the first big election, 2003, you have this kind of clear strategic goal with the country, with singular leadership, with the international community, for the most part, just helping but not dictating as much.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting observation in terms of how far these countries have all come and what actually were the influences that determined how far they could actually come in terms of reconstruction and recovery after they went through these very dark periods in their histories. Dr. Beloff, if I may, I just need to ask that you stick with us for a moment. We do need to take an ad break. When we come back, we'll continue with the conversation. Stay tuned.
Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness. And every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
In the Eastern Cape, children are facing unimaginable hunger. A baby was rescued, fed only powdered drink. A young girl lost her life searching for food. Children eat grass to survive and return to school on Mondays too hungry to learn, some even crying from hunger. Teachers and principals are giving what little they have, but it's not enough. This Ramadan, you can make a difference. Help us support Muslim families in Gqeberha and rural Eastern Cape. Together, we can feed hope, fight hunger, foster change. Donate to the Al-Fida Foundation. Send your proof of payments to admin@alfida.co.za for Section 18A tax certificates, or contact us on 041 484 1288.
Abu Huraira narrated that he heard the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, say, "In black seed there is a healing for every disease except death." This Ramadan, experience the health benefits of this ancient blessed seed by using the Tib Black Seed range. Black seed assists the body to boost immunity, regulate blood sugar levels, reduce inflammation, and act as a potent antioxidant. Experience a holistic approach to health by introducing the Tib Black Seed range into your Ramadan routine. Available in capsules, pure cold-pressed oil, and a vapor rub. Trust Tib Health Sciences for quality black seed products. For more information, visit blackseed.co.za. Available at leading pharmacies.
This Ramadan, join hands with Muslim hands to make a meaningful difference in the lives of millions worldwide. Your zakah and sadaqah can be the lifeline for those in need. Together we can nourish the hungry in South Africa and across the globe, offer clean water to impoverished communities, empower women with sustainable livelihoods, and bring relief to families grappling with the aftermath of natural disasters and conflict. Be their beacon of hope today. Connect with us at muslimhands.org.za or dial 021 633 6413 to extend your support.
World-class financial services only at Sapphire Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic Sharia and ethical financial products, look no further. Sapphire Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
Welcome to Faro Auto Investments, where luxury meets perfection. Located at 92 Rivonia Road, Santon, on Level 2 and Level 3, our showroom is a sanctuary of opulence. Step into the realm of prestige as you explore our exquisite collection of luxury vehicles, meticulously curated to meet the highest standards of quality and sophistication. But that's not all. Introducing Origins by Faro, our sister company dedicated to offering affordable luxury vehicles without compromising on quality. Experience elegance within reach. Ready to embark on your journey to luxury? Contact us today at 011 444 9460 or email us at info@farogroup.com for more information. Ramadan Mubarak to all our valued customers. Faro Auto Investments and Origins by Faro, where luxury is a lifestyle.
You are listening to Salam Media live from our headquarters in South Africa. This is Salam Media, keeping you company this Ramadan.
Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, you are tuned into Salam Media. It is the weekend edition of the Iftar Drive. My name is Zaid Jadwat, and my guest this afternoon, Dr. Jonathan R. Beloff, a Postdoctoral Research Associate at the Department of War Studies at King's College in London. He's actually speaking to us out of Rwanda because at the moment that country is about to enter into a period of commemoration of a genocide that unfolded in that part of the world. And we're just looking at the post-genocide reconstruction of that country. And just before the ad break, we did draw parallels between the genocide in Rwanda, which, if you look at figures, there's various figures between around 500,000, some giving you 800,000 people were killed in that genocide. And we looked at the parallels between recovery in that country and in countries like South Africa, where apartheid was a crime against humanity, and also the Holocaust, which unfolded in Germany and in the very same century. And of course, I think Dr. Beloff mentioned you cannot exactly compare pain, but you can compare the reconstruction efforts that played out. Dr. Beloff, just shifting away from that for a minute or so, there is a debate about the role of colonialism in terms of the idea of the tribe and ethnicity. When we look at this, we generally look at this as something that unfolded between Hutus and Tutsis, right? And it was an ethnic issue. How do the differing views influence our interpretation of the events that unfolded in Rwanda 30 years ago?
So there are predominantly two arguments or two narratives about Rwandan history, about Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa. One, which is adopted by the current government, which is based off of oral history that Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa were socioeconomic groups with huge movements in between. The amount of cattle you own determined your category. If you had 10 or more cows, you were considered Tutsi. If you had less, you were considered Hutu. And if you were more of a hunter-gatherer, or just had no cows at all, you were considered a Twa. And with how the current Rwandan government views history, that it was during the Germans in the late 19th century, in the 1880s, but really the Belgians, when they took over, they took Rwanda and Burundi in roughly 1916 during World War I, and they were probably given it in the colonial context in the 1920s, where they used social Darwinism to try to understand these divisions. And instead of seeing them as socioeconomic, they saw them as ethnic, that Tutsis seem too European to be Africans, that they must then somehow be connected to the most European people, aka in Africa, aka the Ethiopians. And this would be a huge narrative during the genocide of kill the Tutsis, throw their bodies in the river, that will eventually return them to their homeland in Ethiopia. You have the researchers in the West, Alison Forges, Phil Brunchkin, Susan Thompson, and etc., who argue that ethnicity was always a part of Rwandan society, even before colonialization, and how the current government is trying to ignore historical realities to placate their political ambitions. So they're arguing that Hutu and Tutsi were always ethnic differences. Should it have gone to the extreme, as we saw for most of Rwanda's post-colonial independence from 1962 to 1994, pogroms, massacres, forced emigration, and then eventually the culmination of a genocide? No, they're not saying it's justification, but they are very critical of the government's narrative that's history of ethnicity in Rwandan history.
And of course, then we do look at this within the context of, that there are various explanations as to why Africa has failed to meet its full potential since gaining independence. A lot of scholars put it down to tribalism, to tensions between ethnicities. And I think I just felt this was an interesting thing, which you touched on in a recent article for the conversation. Of course, based off of your work in Rwanda, you have spent a considerable amount of time there. You have found that older generations tend to fear a return of ethnic tensions, but the youth, it seems, feel more united. Talk to us about some of the internal as well as external threats to social cohesion in Rwanda.
It is very interesting with Rwanda, with millennials and Gen Z, how they have adopted much more of the government's narrative, the government's policy of we are Rwandans, we are all one. That's the idea of Hutu and Tutsi and Twa shouldn't really hold that much significance. Very much other parts of the world want to just get a good education, find a good job, buy land to build a house. The idea that of the importance or even the need to really discuss or find out who is who is seen as more, though, that's what the older generation does, or that's what the older generation did. But right now, it's irrelevant to us. We have our own issues that we want to focus on. When it comes to a question that I'm always asked is, oh, could there be another genocide against Tutsis or something? And reality is no. It is extremely low if possible, but there are still challenges in Rwandan society. Remember, it's just 30 years since the genocide against Tutsis, since the rebuilding. You have economic issues, the rural-urban divide, unemployment, issues that, to be fair, can be found in most parts of the world, or here as well. And those are the issues that people care more about, finding that good job. Despite this, there are still threats, external threats. You have the Congolese-based rebel group, the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, the FDLR, which are the remnants of the genocide forces here that fled into Zaire or now present-day DRC, which are getting quasi, if not questionable, support by the current Congolese military. It's not so much that this rebel group can overthrow the current government here and return the country back to 94, which is what they want, return of ethnic divisionisms, and with many, a return of the genocidal killings. The fear is the ontological issues, the ontological insecurities, that the ideology that they hold can still be tempting, even if it doesn't feel realistic when you come to Rwanda. Nevertheless, there is the concern. The perfect analogy that was given to me was the FDLR or a mosquito. A mosquito can't kill you, but what it but what the concern is, it's the malaria that it can carry. It's the ideology, the fear. That is the malaria that can kill the body. So the fear is that if there's problems, if there's massive issues, and if the country then turns to scapegoating or divisionism, then that could lead a return to the ideology. That is once again why the government is pushing, and it seems with the younger generation fully accepting that we're all in this together.
Mm. And then, of course, just to wrap up, when we look at the rebuilding efforts, we hear resounding never again, not just in Rwanda, but in other parts of the world as well. We saw what happened in Germany, we saw what happened in South Africa, we saw what happened in Myanmar more recently. And of course, this is not something humanity can afford. And so the resounding voice is that never again. Yet we do see what happens and continues to happen in places like the Congo, for example, at the moment, where there's much bloodshed at the moment. We see much bloodshed in Gaza as well. From your side, Dr. Beloff, what are some of the lessons then that the world could learn from Rwanda, the case of Rwanda, not just during the period of the genocide and before? In fact, if we might just go a few steps back and look at the time in the build up to this genocide, but also the time since then, where they have been attempting and they have been making efforts to rebuild this society. What are some of the lessons that the rest of us in the world can learn?
I think the core thing that could be learned is to understand the history, to understand the pitfalls, and to figure out how do we not repeat them. Society doesn't change immediately, but it will take years. In Rwanda, they're expecting a few generations, even though if you come here, you feel the massive amounts of social change. But that change came through government policy, through changing of education, of getting rid of an ethnic-based quota system, an institutionalized racist system, by saying that we are Rwandans, that one is not better than the other. This lessons that, for instance, you with Congo, what is happening there, the massacres that are happening there, the scapegoating for political reasons, or in Gaza with a war that began from Hamas that has been teaching genocide ideology against Israelis and against Jews, about how that system needs to be broken for a new one, for society to come together. And it will take time, and it will take the idea of rebuilding trust and the social cohesion. Unfortunately, that won't happen overnight. I know I'm repeating that a lot, but it can happen with the right political will, with the actors who want an end to the violence, who want the cycle of violence to end and for a new beginning to happen.
Of course, I think nobody really wants violence in any corner of the world, and nobody benefits from that. I can say that for sure. But thank you so much for speaking to us this afternoon, for sharing your insight, and all the best on the remainder of your trip in Rwanda.
Thank you for having me.
That was Dr. Jonathan Beloff, Postdoctoral Research Associate at the Department of War Studies at King's College in London. He is based in London, but of course, speaking to us out of Kigali in Rwanda, where they are now commemorating 30 years since the genocide. And of course, we wrapped up with a short note on what lessons the rest of the world can learn from that episode. Of course, seeing that genocide is not a thing of the past. It's not history. We haven't left it behind in the 20th century. It continues to be perpetrated against people in many parts of the globe, not least to mention what is happening in Gaza, in Palestine, and so on. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we will continue with the show. We do have Ruhana Ibrahim coming up, and she'll be sharing a few recipes with us as we shift to some lighter conversation for this afternoon. Stay with us.